All right, gonna start in 3, 2, 1. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Third Apron podcast live. I am your host, Yossi Goslin, back again with official new co-host of the show, Sam Quinn. And the season's underway. Tomorrow we've got our first few games, so we wanted to just get some feelings out, some things, predictions, stuff that we feel like may or may not happen, things we'll probably mostly be wrong about. And this is going to be our usual time. You know, me and Sam could go for hours. Just want to say it's been a great first week having Sam on, officially co-hosting. It's been going just as great as I had hoped for. Sam, how are you feeling so far? Taking the reins at times.
I'm excited. We've been doing this thing for months where I was like here sometimes, not here other times. Now it's good to just have that consistency. I have a lot of takes to get off today, a lot of things that aren't going to happen, but I just want to be said on the record. So today's going to be a fun one.
Yeah. So you put together some of these categories, and I think we should just get off to it. Also, today we should note it is today is the deadline for players to sign either the rookie scale extensions. That's going to be at 6 p.m. Eastern. And then later at night is for veterans with multiple years left on their contract. We just had Christian Braun sign his extension. Shams just reported that. So if there's anything notable that happens, we might react to it. I don't know, anything you want to say about this one real quick before we get to it?
Just seems like a fair contract. I hope it's flat. Well, actually, in Denver's case, considering the apron issues they're having, it might make sense for them to start him at the lower number and boost it up 8% every year. But yeah, it seems like a fair contract, 25 million a year for like a solid starter. I have no major objections to it. There hasn't been a rookie deal so far that I haven't liked for the team.
Yeah, I have to really dig into these. I feel like most of these are pretty favorable for the players in the sense that at least you're avoiding restricted free agency. And we just saw how killer that could be for the players on their end. For the Nuggets, this seemed like the amount that he was probably going to get. I think on the higher end for me, this should probably be the baseline now for Dyson Daniels if he's going to get something tonight. So I'm sure
I just saw reporting he wants 150. The Hawks want 115. It seems crazy to me that he would get less than Braun. So you're right. But I hope that they settle at like 130-ish, 135.
I would have to imagine it's going to be like, if there's an agreement, this is the absolute bottom. I don't know, maybe it was Scotto who reported that. Maybe it was, oh no, that was for Braun that they were looking at, maybe 115. It's got to be at least this 125, the 25 million a year range, which also Giddey got, which I think Dyson Daniels will be better than Giddey. And now for the Nuggets, just very interesting long-term implications because this contract really wasn't possible unless they did the Michael Porter Jr. trade, because the savings they got from going from Porter Jr. salary to Cam Johnson salary really helps subsidize this and potentially Peyton Watson's deal if they agree to something. So now they're tentatively going to be above the second apron next year, but keep in mind Jonas Valanciunas does have that non-guaranteed salary. So they could potentially waive him if Daron Holmes is ready. Over the offseason, one of the bigger stories was how Jonas Valanciunas wanted to go back overseas. So if Daron Holmes is ready, if they go far enough, achieve as much as they were hoping for with Valanciunas here, maybe they grant him that. That could help towards keeping Peyton Watson, maybe staying below the second apron. You mentioned to me earlier, privately, maybe they could do something with Zeke Naji as we get closer. Maybe they could stretch him if needed to help save even more money. So they've got some options there. But yeah, that was like the big thing about the Michael Porter Jr. trade. I think Cam Johnson definitely is better than him, but I don't think it's like I don't think the difference between both players is so wide, but I think just mainly the savings, it helped them be ready to make this move because all their other moves they did was mainly sign minimum guys, and they got some good minimum guys, but they wouldn't have been able to do this move without that trade. So Great offseason by the Nuggets. And if there's anything more we get over the news over the next few hours, if it's worthy, we'll react to it. So, Sam, are you ready for some predictions to start the year?
Please, let's do it. We've got to get them out today because tomorrow they're useless.
All right. So, the first one we want to do is first coach fired. This one I think has gotten a lot harder in recent years, mainly because it's really hard to predict this early on who that might be. But then also we've seen some pretty good coaches with pretty high statures get fired, mostly after the season ends. Like we're talking about coaches that may have taken their teams to the finals or the conference finals, and then like within 2 years they get fired. So as far as like someone mid-season, I had a hard time coming up with that, but I did ultimately come down with an answer. I can't say I'm too confident, but I've got something. Who do you have?
Doc Rivers, because the Bucks are so desperate and they're not going to want to admit to themselves that the reason they're in this situation. I don't want to say it's in necessarily poor roster management. I understood the Lillard trade. I was okay with it. The Miles Turner thing I thought was probably riskier than they should have gone for. But again, it was justifiable given the end goal of getting Giannis to resign. But like if they start out 5-9 or something, like if we're 3 or 4 weeks into the season and it is clearly not working, they've got to try something because they're all in. There's no world here where they can pivot into like, oh, we'll trade Giannis and we'll be okay. No, if this doesn't work, they're kind of screwed for the next half decade. So I think Doc Rivers is just the easiest fall guy. I think the Bucks are going to be disappointing this year. It was very hard for me to find one of those Michael Malone, Taylor Jenkins kind of coaches where you could just point and say like, "Oh, this team is supposed to be really good. If there's any issue, they'll just immediately fire the coach." Is like the lever they can pull because all of those coaches were already fired. Like Tom Thibodeau's gone. You can't put him on this list anymore. So the other guy, this is not a first coach fired, but like a name that I was looking at is like after the season, who could be that like playoff disappoints coach who gets blamed for something going wrong in the postseason. Jamal Mosley has to prove that he can coach a viable offense this season. If he doesn't, I think his job maybe isn't on the line because he's so good defensively and he's never quite had a team like he has now. And, he's young, his players really like him. I don't think he's on the hot seat or anything, but like if you're looking for a surprise firing, that's a name that comes to mind. But if you're asking the first coach fired, Doc Rivers is the easy name to me.
So I'm glad you touched on Mosley. I'm not predicting him to be fired this season or even the first coach fired, but I do think, and I think this is something that we discussed when Desmond Bain was acquired by the Magic, that trade basically put Jamal Mosley on the clock. I think because they now have very high expectations, especially with how weak the East is. I don't know what they're expecting exactly, but the one thing that I think has going for them is that they haven't won a first round series yet. So I think the bar for that is pretty low in these. So if they can at least do that, I feel like that is enough of a progression where he'll be safe. But otherwise, I think there's a lot of pressure on him, even anyways, to get this offense at a very high level. I don't know. I'm very curious to know what the front office expects this offense to be. I'm a little lower on them, and I'm sure they'll come up more as we get deeper into our predictions. But I'm not that confident they're even going to be like that high above average offensively. The big thing I felt about the Bain trade is that it didn't really fundamentally change the way they play offense. They play offensively. So if they feel like this team is not where they want it to be offensively, then I think they're going to they'll have to start looking for some options. And that probably starts with the coach and trying to get somebody who can raise that ceiling, similar to when the Cavs brought in Atkinson. And then this offseason, I know the Knicks were top 5 in offense last year, but they want it to be a little more, they want, it to be a little more spread out. So they went out and got in Mike Brown. Hopefully they can achieve that. Yeah, Doc Rivers definitely in my top three of this category. If things don't go well for the Bucks, they're going to need to do something to try to appease Giannis, and that's one of the first things they can do, especially if he's not happy with Rivers. I looked at Nick Nurse, but I think that's also more so the entire organization. If just those, I think, organizationally, Darren Morey's done really well in the margins, especially in the draft in recent years. Maxie McCain, Edgecombe, acquiring Quentin Grimes. It's very good marginally, but the contracts for Paul George, Joel Embiid, like those are really big losses in a macro sense that could cost them the front office and just everything, so the coach as well. And Bob Myers now, he is the president of all the teams owed by Josh Harris, so he can have a say in that. But the one I came down to, I'm not saying I think this is for sure going to happen, but I feel I think the number one is for me is Willie Green for first coach fired. The Pelicans look like they're going to be healthy. No big injuries other than Murray, which was a last season injury to start the year. But even with their team fully healthy and the players playing as well as you probably hoped they'd be, I'm still not that confident they're going to be in the play-in range, even though in the 2 years that they were healthy, they made the playoffs. They were 8 seed, I think, each time. So I'm still kind of down on them. I feel like even if they're healthy, that West is just so strong right now that they're probably still going to be in the lower play-in range. And we have a new front office out in New Orleans. Maybe they want a new guy because it's all the reporting seems to indicate ownership is the reason Willie Green's still sticking around. So I could see that changing pretty quickly.
Yeah, the Knicks tried to hire James Borrego as the top assistant to Mike Brown, and the Pelicans didn't let them. You don't have to let teams hire away your assistants. If it's a lateral move, you're well within your contractual rights to deny that. It's standard league practice. If somebody wants to move, you typically let them. The reason you don't, if you're the Pelicans, is because you expect James Borrego to be the interim coach if you fire Willie Green 20 games into the season. And at that point, you're also looking at him as a permanent option. So that's sort of what I think is going on here. I think there's a good chance Willie Green is fired during the season if they start out slow, and James Borrego gets the first crack at the permanent job. They're going to play two rookies a lot, two rookies who don't shoot. You know what you need around Zion Williamson is shooting. Herb Jones is the only reliable defender on that roster. I guess Jose Alvarado, but at his size, there's just only so much you can do. So you do not have to sell me on selling on the Pelicans. I am totally out on that team. I think they're going to hand the Hawks a very high draft pick. No notes. I'm totally fine with that. Philly, you brought up, yeah, it kind of just feels like dead organization walking. Like, I don't know why it's always Philly that's doing this, where they have Hinkie and they bring in Colangelo, and then Brett Brown is the GM, but then they take away the GM title and they give it to Elton Brand. And then Elton Brand stays in the organization, but they hire Daryl on top of him. And then they hire Bob Myers, and Daryl is still in the organization below him. Like, the Sixers can't go more than a year or two without introducing some awkward new front office dynamic. I hope that Philly stays healthy and plays reasonably well. I am actually reasonably confident, not confident, you can't be confident with Philly, optimistic about what that team can be if they're healthy. And I think it would be, frankly, kind of dumb to fire Daryl for extensions and contracts that many GMs, most other GMs would have given out. So I wouldn't be looking to clean out that organization, but I think there's a good chance that's where this ultimately goes.
Yeah, that's probably something we could probably get some type of resolution on towards February after the trade deadline, maybe March, depending where the Sixers are. I just don't think the team's gonna be that good anymore. I know there's a huge variability. Maybe they could be as high as a 50-win team. They could be as low as something in like the low 20s. I don't know. I feel like they probably will be in the plane range. I'm just not confident in the talent that they have anymore and the ability for Nick Nurse to put it together. So yeah, that one can definitely be one especially if the front office needs to do some kind of Hail Mary move to try to, whether it's a job saving thing or whatever. Definitely something I'll be keeping an eye on. Let's move on to the next one, Sam. First time All Star, shifted to something a little more positive. I'll go first. I've got a couple. I think the biggest ones that we can point at is someone in the East, most likely, and it'll probably be several players in the East.
I only have West players, so this is perfect.
Okay, so I'll just go with like, I think like I'm pretty sure we're gonna see like 2 or 3 players in the East make it, because the injuries to Jason Tatum, Tyrese Halliburton, I'm not that confident we're gonna see a Sixer make it. So I like a couple guys. First, I'll start a little higher, and especially after a conversation last week with John on our podcast, John Gonzalez from CBS Sports. I feel like Jalen Johnson has a real shot to be an all-star. If the Hawks are playing as well as we expect, they're on a 50-win pace. I think the Hawks are going to need 2 all-stars. That's just kind of how some of these things go. I could see it. I really like the idea. I really think he could do it. In that same regard, I think the Magic might need 2 all-stars if things are going really well. So Franz Wagner could be in there. The Knicks, I think they're going to win 60 games, in which case maybe voters want to give 3 all-stars. So I could see OG Anunoby making it as a third one over, along with Jalen Brunson and Cat. But the one I'm the most confident in happens to be in the West, and I think it's going to be Chet Holmgren. I think I'm going to expect that he's going to be healthy. Last year, he only played like 30-something games, but his impact in that small sample size was enormous. He's going to be the second option to start the year. Maybe you could correct me on this. I'm not too sure how long Jalen Williams is supposed to be out, but if he's going to miss a considerable amount of time, that's going to give Chet a much higher elevated role as a second option offensively. I think he's going to thrive in that role. The Thunder probably going to win 60 games as well. They're going to need multiple all-stars. So let's, just in case Jalen Williams isn't going to play enough games early on, or maybe when he comes back, he's not quite as good as he was last year as he reintegrates. I think that's going to help Chet's case, but I'm really high on the player. Even without that, I could see them getting 3 all-stars with Jalen Williams if he returns in good form. I feel pretty confident it's going to be Chet.
Yeah, I think a lot of those guys' health is the real question. If Jalen Johnson is healthy, he will probably be an all-star because he played at an all-star level last year. He just got hurt, and Chet is sort of in the same boat. So my 2 guys, I went a little bit further off book. I've got one that is one of the favorites for most improved player, so I don't think this would be crazy. Shaedon Sharpe. I think he is going to run Portland's offense. He's going to be their leading scorer on a team that's going to be very good defensively, so therefore should be pretty competitive. He has had a great camp by all accounts, signed a contract that I think is going to look very, very good in the not too distant future. I am just a very, very big believer in the talent. He has the physical tools to be a superstar. It has never really come together. I think this is the year that he takes his first really significant step in that direction. Here's my totally off book answer. If things go right for this team, this is such an easy narrative for voters to get behind. Can we bring up DeAndre Ayton? Because if DeAndre Ayton playing for a contract, mind you, DeAndre Ayton playing for a contract is one of the most powerful forces in basketball. We're talking about a guy who made the finals and got a max contract from a smart team. By the way, Indiana gave him that max contract, not Phoenix. If the Lakers are really good, LeBron is missing the beginning of the season. I wonder if the Lakers are a little bit decent on defense, and Ayton is catching lobs and maybe doing the dirty work now. I feel like there are going to be a lot of people who are like, hey, you know who's pretty decent it's DeAndre Ayton. It's who's the secret to this Lakers success outside of Luka? DeAndre Ayton. To be clear, I'm not picking it. I don't think that's going to happen. Shaedon Sharpe is my pick. I'm just saying if you want a real deep cut of somebody who I could see having a narrative formed around him, I just wanted to put the name out is all.
Wow. No, you already had me at Shaedon Sharpe, where Well, why don't we discuss that contract he signed? I guess you think that's probably like the best contract signed in the entire offseason then.
Oh yeah, I'm very very confident in that contract. They're paying him less than they paid Anthony Simons, and that contract was 4 years ago, 3 years ago. I don't remember the exact timing.
Yeah.
I am higher on Shaden Sharp right now than I think Anthony Simons performed on that contract. I think he will be a better player, making less money in a higher cap environment. I am just very, very bullish. I think the athleticism is so special. I think it really started to come together last year. I just think with Scoot out, especially, and with all those vets in the building who are going to be good sources for him to lean on, I think this is going to be a breakout year for him.
That's way better than that's a way better choice than I did as far as like a deeper cut. As far as that contract, I it's definitely a safer bet for him to take than go to restricted free agency. There's a very strong likelihood that he will outplay that deal and it might not look good on his end. Um, but even if he isn't going to be an all-star, like you said, that contract I think still serves value where he as a percentage of a cap then he's starting to make it's like kind of like the same amount of money percentage wise as what like Norman Powell, Colin Sexton is making right now, like these really high end scorers who could come off the bench. So if that's what he amounts to, that's still a fine contract if he's one of the best of those types of players and he can be better defensively than them. But yeah, I haven't really thought about the possibility of Shaden being like something above that. First, I want to see if he can even like live up to that, which I'm not sure yet. So no, that's I love that answer. Because Ched was super safe. That was an awesome answer. I love that. Did you? Yeah, you went straight for Shaden and Aiden. Anybody else you wanted to just kind of give a mention to?
Well, yeah, you mentioned like I think there's a great chance Chet is a first time All Star and Jalen Johnson. Like Trey Murphy is another guy who I think is like theoretically good enough to make a run at an All Star team if things go right in New Orleans. I just when have things ever gone right in New Orleans? So I can't in good conscience predict that. Whereas like I am a little bit higher on Portland. I do think they'll be a play-in team. So I mean the other name we kind of have to bring up is like Cooper Flag's got a shot, right? It's like when was the last time we saw a rookie in the All-Star game? Because Wembanyama didn't make it. I know there was a push for him. I'm trying to think, did Durant make it as a rookie? I don't know. You got to figure Cooper Flag at least has a chance, especially if he's playing point guard. I think and if Anthony Davis misses time too, there's a shot.
Yeah,
I don't know how likely it is, but we should probably mention him.
yeah, that's the thing going for him is that I think they're gonna play him a lot at the point. I wouldn't be surprised if they just go to that full time faster than we imagine because I'm not very confident that D'Lo is gonna do that well. I wouldn't be surprised if Brandon Williams takes a starting spot pretty soon, but then at that point, why not just start Cooper and do it full time? That might be a lot for him early on, but let's say he's thriving in that role and the Mavs are like not a little above 500 but like maybe even like a 5 game, like they're 5 games over on average, the Mavs are, and they're like firmly at least in the top 8, then the Mavs are gonna need an all-star. It's probably gonna be Anthony Davis, but that means Cooper did so well to fill up the void of the playmaking with Kyrie out that you gotta give him heavy consideration. Like that's the only way, like in my mind, that the Mavs are doing that well early on. I'm pretty low on the Mavs. I feel like they're going to be treading 500 without Kyrie.
I looked this up. We have had 2 rookie All Stars this century. I don't think you're going to be able to guess them. Go for it.
LeBron I think is one.
No, LeBron did not make it.
Oh, Yao Ming.
Yes, that was a voter pick. But Yao Ming was also awesome as a rookie. Yeah. The stats actually are not that good. He averaged 13 and a half points and 8 rebounds as a rookie. Not great. I think you actually probably could get the second one. Statistically, he actually deserved it.
But I know it's like a popularity. It was definitely like a popularity thing, like the fan. It
To
was a
some
fan vote,
extent,
right?
yes. I don't know
I
if it
just,
was a fan vote or not, but he deserved it statistically, but he also played in a relatively big market. You want me to just tell you?
yeah, just tell me.
Blake Griffin.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. 22 and a half points, 12 rebounds, 4 assists. Like, Blake Griffin deserved to be an All-Stars rookie.
Yeah,
He was also a fake rookie because he missed his first season. So, but
yeah.
he
That's what
did
I was gonna
make,
say.
yeah.
A lot of people wouldn't count him as a real rookie. Um, all
We
right,
don't talk enough about how good Blake Griffin was, by the way. He's just like one of these guys that's totally fallen through the historical cracks. Blake Griffin was fucking awesome. Can I curse on here? It's my show. I can curse on
Yeah,
here.
I've been cursing.
We don't have advertisers.
No, I've been cursing a little bit. Uh, I do think something we could discuss is like greatest short prime all stars, players that were just incredible for a very short amount of time before injuries did it to them.
Oh,
Like
that's a
I
fun
mentioned,
episode.
I
I have some
mentioned Yao
Bernard King
Ming,
stories.
Brandon Roy, T Mac. Kind of like like he had a long career, but his prime was also just not as long as you'd hope. That would be a fun one. Blake Griffin, he's kind of in that category.
We'll do that during the season when we've got like a slower moment, but that's a fun episode.
Yeah, maybe when we're maybe like an all star break,
Yeah.
some like that's short prime all stars. All right, next category, surprise top 6 playoff team. This one was kind of hard for me to figure out. I've had more conviction in previous seasons, but I have a team that I think will be number one. I have a couple in mind. Who do you have? Let me start. I'll start with you.
Yeah, my easy one, and to be clear, easy is relative here. I don't think we're gonna have a surprise top 6 team, but the obvious one was San Antonio, where Wembanyama might just be so good that nothing else matters. I am still pretty dubious about their offense. They just have so many guys who don't really shoot. That being said, I think the defense is probably going to be in the top 5 or pretty close to it. And that alone is usually enough to get you in the mix for a top 6 seed. My off book answer, and I can't believe I'm saying this, I don't actually believe it to be clear. This is just a team that I found myself getting a little bit more excited about as time has passed. Can I interest you in the Chicago Bulls? I think their
Th-
defense is going to be atrocious, to be absolutely clear, but they have a defined playing style that's going to be really annoying to play against. They're the fastest team in the NBA. They shoot a million threes. They've got a bunch of guards. They're going to be able to create shots. Maybe not high leverage end of game shots, but middle of the second quarter, absolutely. They're a team that strikes me as like they could have the random, fun, surprising season that ruins their own internal expectations and like compels them to give out some bad contracts and make some questionable trades, and then they regress again next year. I think the Bulls are going to be kind of fun.
No, I actually had them in consideration because when you're looking at the East, who do we got that? I think like the list of teams that we for sure make the top 6 is still kind of all over the place when people make predictions, but I feel pretty confident of 5 teams, which is Knicks, Cavs, then you got Hawks, Magic, Pistons, and then after that, I think the tier from 6 through 10, they're all kind of in mesh right now. I don't know who's going to stick out from that bunch, whether it's the Heat, the Bucks, and then we get to
we have
teams
breaking
like
news, by the way. And
oh
remember how you said that Christian Braun was the floor for Dyson
wow,
Daniels? 4 years, 100 million. Dyson Daniels gets less than Christian Braun. I hope there's a player option on that, and that's why he didn't get the 5th year. I'm surprised.
wow,
That is a killer deal for Atlanta. For Dyson, you better get that player option because that is lower than I thought.
dang. I think the Nuggets for got to be kicking themselves right now that they got their deal way above. Well, I mean, no, it's only an additional year. Actually, it's the same amount, just a year less. So yeah,
Right,
I mean,
but that extra year, if it's guaranteed, that's one thing. If I'm Dyson Daniels, I'm only giving you 4 years if I'm getting a player option on the last one.
no, I think that actually makes sense. I was doing the math wrong in my head as I'm reading this. I was reading like 20 million a year, 5 for 100. Now I'm reading this. No, this is fine. Yeah, 25 million a year. I think that was like the absolute lowest. If you're Dyson Daniels, you accept right now. And I think that's reasonable. This is going to help the Hawks a lot with their roster building next year. I haven't put it together, but they should have plenty of tax space for a Porzingis extension. That's really the only other big thing they have left as far as future moves. Obviously, there's a Trae Young extension, but he's got that player option. Maybe he wants to decline it, take something a little less to help with that, and just help the Hawks. Just they're going to want to stay below the tax over these next few years. They're not this. We don't, as far as we know so far, they're not an elite title contender that's worthy to play the tax right now. Pay the tax right now. Excuse me. So I would say this is definitely more favorable for the Hawks, even if he does get a player option. I don't know if there was any mention of that.
We haven't. We'll get that later on. But
I mean, if there is no player option,
he did.
Yeah, if there's no player option, that's an absolute win for the Hawks. Either way, I like it a little more for them. Where were we? Surprise top 16. Okay, so I'm saying basically then you get to that morass of teams 6 through 10, and I think the Bulls, they could reasonably be that team. I don't see why not. The Raptors are another one. So there's definitely a team that could emerge from there that we're not really thinking of. For me, it's also the Spurs. And I think you already hit the points where I'm going, like with Chet, I'm going to expect Wemby to play a full season. I think we could see a scenario where he's just so good that he's single-handedly pushing this team, not just to like a top 6 seed, but maybe even a top 3 seed. And I'm saying that with me not that high on their shooting. I don't think they have enough shooting. I really don't like the defense at all, with the exception of Wemby. But there is a scenario where he is playing so well, especially most of the wins that they had last year. A lot of the times that they did win with him before he got hurt were like he had just some really crazy explosions on offense. Now they have Fox, so the offensive burden won't be on him as much. So if Fox comes back strong from this, was it a hamstring injury? I think he has. Or a wrist injury. I don't know. It might be one or the other. I think as long as they're healthy, they could really, I guess that's more the surprise that they could push far above the 6 seed. What do you think about that?
I think the shooting probably caps them at around 6, unless there are a bunch of injuries. I'm higher on the defense than you are. I think Castle has great defensive tools. Sohan is already awesome. He's probably not going to get extended today. Offense is the issue for him. And Carter Bryant's kind of in the same boat where, like, I think Carter Bryant is going to be a great defensive player. I just don't know what the offense is going to look like. So I feel very good about the defense. It's the offense that I have the issues with. Toronto is the other one. Like in the East, I feel like everybody is either a Toronto person or a Chicago person. I am a Chicago person. I am not a big fan of Toronto, but I understand. By the way, just as an aside on the Raptors, I like all of their bench guys, and I kind of dislike all of their starters. Where like Jamal Shed is awesome. I love watching Jamal Shed. I think Grady Dick is ready for a big step forward this year. Murray Boyles, I think, is going to be a very fun rookie. And I feel like all those guys are not going to play as many minutes as they should because, like, oh, RJ Barrett's here and, like, Scotty Barnes All-Star, blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm going to really enjoy the end of the first quarter and the beginning of the second quarter for the Raptors. And I don't think I'll ever watch them close games.
No, I'm actually glad you brought this up because in my very brief preview of the Raptors, the biggest thing I have about them is that I think they might actually have enough shooting and enough spacing on the roster.
It's
I think
just on their bench.
Yeah, the big question is, are they going to actually utilize those players as much as they should? I think it's pretty obvious that, I don't know if obvious is the right way to say, but when they traded for Brandon Ingram, they tried to trade RJ Barrett out in that trade. So it's pretty obvious to people who watch that it's a little too much. There's a little too many guys that need the ball, not enough shooting in that starting lineup. And I could see a lot of their best lineups featuring more of those guys, Grady Dick, Jacoby Walter, Ochai Agbaji. The thing is, they can't really I don't think they could put RJ Barrett off the bench, at least not to start the year. It's going to take a
Politics,
lot of
yeah.
creativity to find the right combinations, but also playing these guys enough. And I'm worried they're not going to get enough minutes as long as they have this exact starting five. If they could find an RJ Barrett trade, maybe just to get like a backup big or something, get some draft picks back. I feel like that might help that problem a lot. In which case, I could see then the Raptors pushing for a 60. I think that they've got the talent. It's just about putting the right combinations together.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable. I just don't trust them to do that. I just don't have much faith in that organization at the moment. I'm also much lower on Brandon Ingram than I think you and most people are. I've kind of just fallen out on him as a player.
I'm
Watch the
pretty
three
low on
point
him.
attempts.
I'm not that
Watch
high on him. I mean,
if you notice, he takes like 6 or 7 threes a game when he's playing for a contract, and like 3 or 4 when he isn't. It's kind of just one of the funnier statistical trends that I've noticed. Um, I think he doesn't really want to be somebody who camps out behind the line and takes threes. He wants to cook inside the arc, and I'm just kind of out. I'm not a big fan. I am Team Bulls as far as the surprise East team.
okay. Yeah, I think any of those teams could definitely make a case. All right, so now that's mostly some of the on-court stuff. Let's get to some of the transactional side of things. The first one we're gonna look ahead and see which team could blow it up at the end of the season. There are a couple. I'll go first. I've got a couple different candidates. The first one that came to mind was the Suns, but they already did kind of blow it up. Yeah, they already did it. It's more so, are they going to do a Devin Booker trade? That could still happen, even though he signed his extension. He would be trade eligible. I don't anticipate it this year. I wrote about the Kings yesterday. I posted about them. Like, I'm already kind of ruling him out for as far as them being a playoff team, and that's going to make them a team to watch at the trade deadline. But the thing is, how much interest around the league will teams have in their players? Like, a lot of talented players for sure, but who, like, are they getting? Like, they're not really going to get hauls for these guys. I don't think they're going to get like multiple first round picks for their starters, right? So
No. I mean, like, I have the Kings coming up in another category. I'm very excited to talk about the Kings stuff I want to talk about. Nobody
so
wants to trade for centers who don't defend. So I'm sorry, like, who's going to be eager to pay Domantas Sabonis max money for several years? I can't find the team.
yeah, so I think that could take some time because they need to maximize value whenever they do these trades. There's the Sixers, which we touched on, but that's going to be very tough with the contracts for Embiid and Paul George. That might require them to do some stretching if needed. There's always the Bucks, and I'm sure we'll touch on them a little more later, but I'm also kind of tired of betting against that because it just, every time we think it's finally going to happen, they figure something out that keeps Giannis appeased a little bit longer.
Well, yeah, remember they have their 31 pick, and next offseason they'll have their 33 pick. So what kind of feels like the Bucksiest answer here is they're like a 6 seed and they lose in the first round, and everybody's panicking, and then the offseason comes and they like trade those 2 first round picks for some older star, and Giannis is appeased and he signs a 2-year extension, and we just kick the can down the road again.
Yep. No, I get the feeling something like that might just happen again. They just make it happen. Even the Miles Turner thing, that wasn't a trade, but that was still some very unexpected transaction they just pulled out of thin air. I came down to 2 that I feel more strongly on. I think it's kind of a tie. Who should I go with first? I'm gonna start
We're gonna
with
have the same 2 teams.
I'm gonna start with, I think, the more obvious one, and that's the Pelicans. I already touched on. Okay, I already touched on where if things are not looking good, Willie Green could be one of the first coaches potentially fired. And right now, health-wise, they're looking fine. Like, it usually, a lot of these health issues with the Pelicans happen already, like in the preseason. That hasn't really been the case as badly. I know Looney's just got hurt. Dairy Queen has been out, but I think he's just about to come back. Like all their top guys though are mainly healthy, and that's going to be important. But like I said, I just still don't feel as confident, even if Zion does put together an all-star season, that in this loaded West they're going to. I don't feel confident they will for sure crack the top 8 at the end. So if they're gonna be like slightly below 500, I don't know if that's enough for them to do a fire sale, blow it up. But I know teams are definitely going to be circling them. I know people will be putting some guys like Trey Murphy or Herb Jones in fake trades if the Pelicans aren't in the playoffs, because how much longer? Because if the team's fully healthy and the theory is just not working, then maybe that's something they have to consider. But at the same time, though, the Pelicans are kind of going through a rebuild at the same time. Like they just had 2 lottery picks, so they've been having lottery picks all throughout these years. So that's the case against them not going against a total rebuild, because no matter what, they're getting picks. But this year they did already trade a very valuable first round pick. The other team that though I have, the last one, is this one. I don't know how it might surprise some. I guess the Mavs. This one could. I think this one could take some time, but I think the ripple effects, the damage from the Luka trade, still not done. I still feel like we're gonna see some more, and I think that as talented as this roster is, with the amount of individual talented basketball players that they have on the roster, they just don't have enough playmaking to put it all together. I think without Kyrie, I think they're going to be a little bit under 500, and if he does come back, I just feel like it's going to be kind of too late for them to make a serious run. And that could lead to big wholesale changes around the organization, where if they do decide to get a new front office, you could bet that they're not going to be attached to this team that they put together, which could mean maybe Anthony Davis could be on a new team in a year. Maybe Kyrie Irving could be in a new team in a year. And they finally build around Cooper Flag as they should.
Yeah, to be clear, the Dallas Mavericks should have blown it up 5 months ago. The moment they won Cooper Flag, they should have realized this cockamamie scheme with Anthony Davis and Kyrie Irving as Nico Harrison's Nike buddies. Oh, we can do so much better than this. We don't need to play this way. No, let's do this slowly and do it properly. Let's get a haul for Anthony Davis. Let's, maybe either sign Kyrie to a more favorable contract or just let him walk, because we have somebody who we think can be one of the 5 best players in the NBA for the long term. Let's prioritize building around him. They should have blown it up by now. They haven't. So they should blow it up before we finish this podcast. It's still out there for them. Is that going to be the case if Anthony Davis falls awkwardly in the middle of November and Anthony Davis needs an MRI, he'll be out 4 to 6 weeks? That window could close at any time. And when that next contract comes up next offseason, I have zero interest in extending Anthony Davis at the max number you assume he would command. They should blow it up. They're not going to, as long as Nico Harrison is there. I hope that ownership group comes to its senses and fires Nico Harrison and installs a general manager who is not operating purely off of his Nike relationships. And frankly, from what it seems like, his ego, they should blow it up. I just don't think they will. I think ownership is pot committed here. Here's what I think is going to happen. Here's how this is going to play out. I think they're going to be in that play-in mix this year. Kyrie will come back around February or March, and we'll hear a bunch of stories oh, nobody wants to play the Mavericks. The Mavericks are the most dangerous team in that range. And maybe they make the playoffs. But you know what happens if you make the playoffs from the play-in? You play Denver or you play Oklahoma City, and you get spanked. But then, okay, all summer we're going to hear Kyrie's healthy now, and Cooper Flag has taken such a big step. And AD signed the extension. He's happy. He's set in Dallas. He wants to retire as a Maverick, Yossi. And then he's going to age, and Kyrie is going to age, and they're going to be worse players next year. And even as Cooper Flag ascends, they're not going to be good enough to compete with the fully realized Thunder, or maybe the Rockets if they're healthy and have made another big move, or God knows who else in the West. They'll be a 4 or 5 seed. And then after that season, you're going to be looking back on this and saying, "Oh my God, we're stuck with declining Kyrie and Anthony Davis. We don't have picks to build around Cooper Flag. This is a sinking ship." And that's when Nico Harrison resigns on his whatever it is 3-year plan or whatever he said, because I can't remember what he said at that press conference, but it was something to the effect of like, yeah, I'll be gone in 3 years. Who cares? Or like, I don't think about the future beyond 3 years. That's how I think this is going to play out for Dallas. They should 100% blow it up, but they're not going to, so I didn't waste my time with them. All of the teams you mentioned are valid on some level or another. I have a Pelicans take I'm going to save for another category. The last team I want to throw out is the Memphis Grizzlies. They kind of soft launched a blow up over the summer when they traded Desmond Bane for a million first round picks. We are both in the camp. Utah regrets not trading Lauri Markkanen when he had that low cap hold. Now I think if they could do that over again, they 100% would have done it. I think we're probably going to go through something similar with Jaren Jackson Jr., where the Grizzlies are going to look back and say, wow, we could have gotten so much for him when his cap number was so small. It's harder to trade him now that he's making a market value contract. I think this is going to be a year from hell for them. They already have a million injuries. The injuries tend not to let up for them. Ja Morant, I just don't trust him to stay on the floor at this stage anymore. I think they're going to be like an 8 or a 9 or a 10, or maybe even on the outside looking in if the injuries get worse. And at that point, I think you kind of just say, we have all these picks. We have a chance to rebuild. The West is so good that if we are intentional about this, we can probably secure a top 6, top 7 pick with even more upside next year. Let's go for it.
I thought about them. I just don't think it'll happen too soon. It would take first of all, the injuries have already been happening. Not a good start at all. That John Morant and Scottie Pippen. I know Jaren was hurt, but I think he's back. But also Zach Edey and Brandon Clark. I'm already getting some bad like 23-24 season vibes where it seems like they could just have another lost year with the start they already have with these injuries. You're right though about how the Bane trade was kind of like the soft launch. I don't think they'd be afraid to do this, to trade both Ja and Jaren and just reset it. I think they tried. I think this season will probably is a bit more of a make or break year than a lot of people think. And I wouldn't be surprised if at the end of the year they decide to go that route. The Bane.
It doesn't even have to be. It doesn't have to be Ja. To be clear, I don't think you can trade Ja for value. But if you traded Bane for 4 picks and you can get 3 for Jaren or something, you can keep Ja and be like, yeah, you're still our franchise player. We're just retooling around you, and still be pretty bad and still get a couple high picks while you like let his contract play out and see if he still got it. So it wouldn't take much. It would really just be a Jaren trade, I think.
I think right now they could, if they wanted to do it sooner, like this year, I think they could get a lot for Jaren in mid-season. If Ja's not going to get back to like 2023 levels and before, plus the injuries, and they might have to wait a little longer, and they could wait to sell him to trade him at the right time if he can get his value up much higher. But I would agree this is probably more so like a next year thing. That's a good choice. I didn't consider him that high, but I think I think this is a more critical year than a lot of us are anticipating. And by the way, I looked at, so Shams did his follow-up report, with like the ESPN link on the Daniels extension. Still haven't seen any mention of a player option. Not seeing that. Scotto's
awesome reporting. Deal for the Hawks then.
Looks like, as of now, doesn't seem like there is an option. Like, I feel like that would have gotten out. So yeah, I love it a lot more for the Hawks. All right, I think we're a little bit halfway done. In the same realm of future transactions, first we were seeing who's going to blow it up, but now who's going to go all in? Who's going to be the team on the other end that decides to potentially help a team like the Grizzlies or the Mavs reset and take their best players and maybe make a big run? I see it. I went last. You go first on this one.
Okay, so I have my obvious answer and then I have my stealthier answer. The obvious one is the Lakers. They have those 3 first-round picks to trade next summer. They're using them. They're not like it's one thing to do this year where LeBron's still here and like we're kind of in between eras. You're not waiting until 2027 with Luka. You're not doing a 2-year wait for cap space that's not going to materialize because Jokic is going to resign and Giannis is going to get settled one way or another this offseason. They are trading those picks. Maybe Reeves too, depending on the guy, but they are trading those picks. I don't know for who. You could tell me like they sneak into Giannis. You could tell me it's Jaren. You could tell me it's any number of other guys. The Lakers, I think, will have a defined direction with like a second star level guy on the team for the 26-27 season. My stealthier one, and I don't know if I would say all in, but the team that I look at is like, I could absolutely see them making a pretty significant pick space trade that nobody's talking about would be Portland for a few reasons. First of all, they've clearly eschewed the idea of continuing to tank, continuing to go young. When you trade for Drew Holiday on that contract, when you re-sign Lillard, the indication there is that, like, no, we are trying to be competitive right away. I think Shaedon Sharpe is going to take that jump. If he does, Scoot Henderson maybe is not quite as essential, especially with Damian Lillard coming back for them. I think they should bring Damian Lillard off the bench. I don't know if that organization is going to have a taste for that. So you suddenly have a pretty big trade chip there. You also have all of those Bucks picks. Would I recommend trading those Bucks picks? No. But it does free you up to trade your own picks a little bit more freely because you still know that you have premium assets. So the guy I'm looking at for Portland, Detroit is the most common team associated with this guy, but like, could Portland be a Lowry marketing team? I could see them going for that. I think Portland is going to be aggressive. I think this year they're going to be a playing team. And then I think after that, they're going to say like, okay, how can we take the next step after that? So that's my like stealthier all-in team. But the team I actively expect to go all in is the Lakers.
The Lakers are that, so they could do that next off season. Yes. I should have clarified. This is
I said within next year. Yeah, to be clear.
I didn't say that, so I'm just clarifying to those listening. This is for who will probably go all in next year. In which case, the Lakers could go all in next year. They'll have 3 first-round picks to trade. Right now, I think they only have like 1 that they could trade. They're 2031 or 2032. So they'll be in a much better position to trade for a potential all-star. Then Portland was high on my list. I think they still need a little more proof of concept, a little bit more time. They just went ahead and secured Shaedon Sharpe and Tamani Kamara for the long term. So even though they do have a lot of money on their books between them, they've got who else do they have? They have some other pretty big obligations.
Well, Jeremy Grant is a big one. Drew, obviously, like they're pretty expensive.
We got Drew, Grant. Like these aren't the biggest, especially when you have 2 more years of Avdia making the mid-level, Lillard mid-level lower. Well, this is for this year. I didn't show next year, but they still have a lot of flexibility where they could still make another big move. But the only big variable in that way is what's going to happen with Scoot. Because if he can finally become a starter this year, then if you're going to pay him, then you're kind of out of moves. Then eventually you're going to need to extend Klingon, assuming he continues on his trajectory. So I think they'll do something because they have that Jeremy Grant contract. That's probably where that big move could come up from, whether it's like a Lowry Markkanen, for example. They still have that salary slot to get a very expensive player if they wanted to do that. But I think they need to see a little bit more. Same thing with the Pistons. That is a team that we both I don't know if we both did the Pistons. No, we didn't do it on I did a different video on the Pistons, but that is a team where maybe they're like a Jaren Jackson team or a Larry Markkanen team as well. If they decide to put their picks together to get Cade their co-star, because Cade, I don't think that guy is on the Pistons right now. I think they're going to have to go get him. But if they can not necessarily replicate last year, I'm not expecting them to build up upon it, but if they can at least just remain a top 6 team, then I think that's enough of a proof of concept that they should do it, go all in. Uh, then there's the Warriors. They could because they could do it a little earlier. They could do it this season with a Kaminga trade. I think it's going to be them as far as like who's going to be the soonest team. They could trade up to 4 firsts or 3 firsts right now, plus Kaminga as the main salary matching. Maybe there's a couple teams out there that highly value him that might be able to include some more positive value in whatever trade the Warriors are doing to get their next starter on that group. Yeah, I think the Warriors are going to be the most aggressive to go all in this as soon as this year, even.
Yeah, I think the Kaminga trade is likelier to be a Phoenix or a Sacramento giving up a role player, and like I guess Phoenix doesn't really have draft picks to offer, so maybe Sacramento, saying like we'll loosen the protections on that first round pick we offered. But that's not really an all-in sort of trade. I just think the salary structure, Kaminga's at like 24. If you're going all in for a guy making like 40-ish, which is how we define all in, I guess, it gets very hard to match the money without gutting their depth because their salary structure is already very top heavy with Steph and Jimmy on 35% maxes. So I think it's probably likelier that they do make a trade, but it's more for like a starting caliber guy than an all in star caliber player.
Yeah, but I think though for them to get that starter caliber player, like Jake Fisher mentioned, it could be Trey Murphy. They're interested in him. Not exactly who you think of for all in, but that could require the Warriors to go all in just to get him. They might have to trade multiple first round picks to do that, just and trade more than what they initially gave up to get Jimmy Butler. And I feel like they're prepared to do that for the right guy. So did I go first on this one or did you? I'm kind of lost.
I did.
Okay, so that's that for who I think will go all in. I'm looking at the Warriors. There is one other team actually. I view a little more, but this kind of coincides with our next category, which is trade prediction. So I'll go first. Like this is definitively what kind of trade we think will happen, and so I think the Spurs might be more ready to go all in than some of these other teams we mentioned. Could be next season, could be as early as this season, where we didn't even anticipate that. When we knew when De'Aaron Fox asked for a trade last year, or even before that, in like December when things were not looking good in Sacramento, the reports coming out he might potentially ask for a trade after the season. We saw. I thought that would happen. The offseason has just happened. I didn't expect it to happen as quickly as it did for him to get to the Spurs. I think Fox isn't going to be the only player who wants to position himself to be with Wemby. I think there's going to be another guy. I don't know who. I think there's a very strong chance that the next star who wants to get traded is going to try to get ahead of it like Fox did and try to go to the Spurs as soon as possible. And the Spurs, even though they on paper gave up a lot of first round picks for Fox, they really only gave up, in my opinion, one valuable first. They still have, I think they could trade up to 4, maybe even 5 first round picks. They've got some intriguing young players that have some value as well. I think the Spurs are going to do something midseason. I don't know who it's going to be. I could see it being Lauri Markkanen, like we discussed earlier. If the Grizzlies were to blow it up, I could see it being Jaren. I think the Spurs are going to be the team because of just how much interest there is for a star to get positioned to play with Wembanyama and get that last quote unquote max slot that the Spurs have to offer before they potentially get another star. I think that's my prediction. I think the Spurs are going to do something pretty wild at the trade deadline.
Okay, I went way more specific than you. As far as the Spurs, I would not recommend making another major trade this season. I think they need to get their house in order, first of all, which means they have Fox, Castle, and Harper. In 2 years, they're not going to have all three of those guys. I think their first priority this year is figuring out who of those guys are we keeping and who of those guys are we moving. I don't mind not making a serious run at things this year if it means getting clarity on those guys for next year and beyond. I actually think they're going to look at this the same way. I think getting Harper changed their plans so significantly that they've kind of had to take a step back and say, like, let's figure out what we have. So, I mean, like, frankly, I think we both believe they wouldn't have made the Fox trade if they'd known they were going to get Harper. They couldn't have known they were going to get Harper. It was just a total curveball. Anyway, clear the lane because I'm going to talk about the Sacramento Kings. I think the Kings are going to get weird this year. So, my obvious trade is I think Jonathan Kuminga probably eventually ends up there. There was this reporting that they were offering, I think, Malik Monk and a lottery protected 2030 first round pick. I think the likeliest way that this ends is that they loosen up those protections. Maybe don't go all the way to unprotected, but like Malik Monk and a top 4 protected 2030 pick for Kuminga. That's where I kind of think this is going to end. Let's get weird. I've got some ideas. These are not good ideas, to be clear. These are not things I think the Kings should do. I think these are things the Kings might be interested in doing. First trade. The Sacramento Kings trade DeMar DeRozan, Dario Saric, Devin Carter, and their 2026 first round pick, top 4 protected, to the Minnesota Timberwolves for Rudy Gobert and Joe Ingles.
All
Why
right, so
am I
this is
bringing
is
up?
this our first who says no of the season?
Yes. No, I'll be clear. The Kings should say no, but they're not rational. So let me just make my argument here. The Kings are absolutely the sort of team that would look at a league-wide trend and totally misunderstand why it works. And what I mean by that is Houston doing the double bigs with Şengün and Adams and saying like, well, why can't we do that with Sabonis and Gobert? What's Domas's big problem? He doesn't protect the rim. Well, let's get Rudy Gobert and that'll fix our defense and then we'll be fine. We'll be one of these giant teams. It wouldn't actually work, but I could 100% see them trying to do it. As for Minnesota, they gave Naz Reid starter money. They gave Julius Randle starter money. You can't start all of those guys. I think if they had wanted to move one of those guys, they would have done it when they were free agents. They also have Joan Berenger, who I think is really good and is going to be their long-term center. You kind of got to clear some minutes for him. It makes sense to get off of Gobert now while he still has some value. That's the like surprise trade that I could 100% see happening on like December 18th, where Minnesota just says, you know what? We're not winning the title this year. Let's take a step back, get a draft pick that we could maybe redirect in a year, open up some more minutes for our young guys. DeMar's just cap filler. If we have to move him or like get off of his contract at the end of the year, we can. I think Minnesota is going to be a little bit more proactive as far as like, if we need to take a step back, we take a step back. We're thinking longer view. The Kings, I could just see doing something totally irrational like this. Here's my other Kings trade. I kind of fell in love with this for the Hawks. Just I think it would be a really fun idea. Trae Young and Kristaps Porzingis for Sabonis, Monk, and Schroeder, with the idea being if you're Atlanta, we're gonna just play a million wings with Sabonis at center, and we're not gonna have a point guard. We'd have Schroeder on the roster, but we're gonna like have a system where everybody has the ball a little bit instead of one guy having the ball a lot. You have all of those wings who can protect Domas defensively. The Hawks, I mean, I'm sorry, the Kings rather would look at this and be like, "Oh, everybody says we need a point guard. Now we have a point guard," without really understanding how roster building works. I think the Kings are going to do something really weird and bizarre. I think over the last year or so, whether it's been the Suns or the Mavericks or the Pelicans, there have been a lot of teams kind of coming at their corner for being the NBA's dumbest team. I think the Kings are going to reassert themselves at some point this season. I don't think they have any intention of getting worse. I think they're going to just say, like, how can we get back into the playoff mix? How can we light the beam again? And they're going to do something totally bizarre.
So my answer is pretty quick to these who says no's. I think both the teams doing this trade with the Kings say no, and I think that lies the issue with why while the Kings on paper make sense as someone who's going to make some big trades where they potentially blow it up. I just don't think the players that they have hold much value at all. Like I think Sabonis might be the only guy who has first round pick value on the team. But when I think about what kind of offers are out there for him, like the two teams that came to mind, I don't think the Hawks would be a Sabonis team. I think I like if they can get Sabonis at half his amount. Porzingis at to extend at half Sabonis's amount. I think they'd rather just stick with him and Okongwu on his great deal. But like the only two teams that really jumped out as a team that I could see like trying to get Sabonis this season. One is the Bulls, which I think
They did it. They did the Vucevic trade. It's the same thing.
Yeah, they basically do it again. They're trading Vucevic and maybe like just another salary filler, and they've got some first round picks, but they offer like one first round pick. What is that really doing if you're the Kings? The other team I could see being interested are the Phoenix Suns, maybe like Jalen Green and Mark Williams. I think that's enough to make a deal work. But the Suns don't have any first round picks to offer. So again, if you're the Kings, what is bringing Jalen Green at his contract do? He's not really giving you that much relief from the Sabonis deal. Oh, and Mark Williams needs to be extended. He might be a nicer option if he can stay healthy, but then you're still doesn't fix this payroll issue that they have coming. They have like a pretty expensive team for a team that's probably like just hoping they hope to make the play-in. So that's my issue. Like I want to say the Kings are going to be the one who for sure blows it up and for sure at least does some big trade. I just don't think their guys hold enough value league-wise that really makes sense for the Kings to pull the trigger on something right now.
You're looking at this wrong, I think. I think you're looking at this in a strictly blow it up sense where they trade their guys trying to get picks back. I don't think that's what they do. I think they make a big trade where they're either trying to get better or they're just trying to shake it up by trading players for other guys with iffy value. What did we learn about Trae Young's trade value when they tried to trade him a couple years ago? Nobody really wants him. So that's kind of a situation where Sabonis and Trae kind of overlap, where their talent outpaces their value around the league. I'm looking at this as if Atlanta decides we don't want to extend Trae, this would be a way for them to mix it up. It's not a situation where the Kings are going, yeah, we're resetting and we're trading Sabonis for picks. It's more like, let's shake up our team by making player for player kinds of trades.
I disagree. I think the new front office they have a lot of sway right now.
It's
and
cute
I don't
that you think anybody but Vivek is making these decisions.
As of now, this first year, I think right now the new front office has a lot, the most influence it might have in its entire run, and I think they're going. I don't think they're going to necessarily like leverage themselves too much, trade too many picks, mortgage themselves. Like I could see them doing that Kuminga trade anyways. If they only have to trade one first, I'm okay with that. I think he could be a nice piece to fit next to Keegan because him and Keon Ellis are the only guys I view, and Nick Clifford are the only guys I view as long-term players for the Kings. So I just think it's going to be very hard for them to make trades. They're not going to get, even if they're trying to tread the middle, just take shortcuts. I don't think they have the players that's going to interest other teams to give them good players back. They don't have a Tyrese Halliburton. They don't have anyone good like that to offer. So I think they wouldn't even be able to make those types of short-term moves, even if they want to. So yeah, that's trade prediction. Okay, so let's do. Should we do league-wide change or should we get to the contracts one?
Let's do one league-wide change, then we'll get to the contracts.
Okay, so this one's a little more broad. We're about to do league-wide change. What is one league-wide change that we think could be a trend maybe that starts to go one way or another? Maybe something the way front offices might start to do differently. Or it could be something more in a macro sense, the league as a whole, business-wise. The way something coaches might want to implement differently. What is yours, Sam?
Yeah, I think this is the year that, and to be clear, I'm talking about a rule change. This was broad, so you can go in a different direction. I think this is the year that the NBA finally says enough is enough when it comes to the end of game foul fest. I'm looking at these baseball playoffs. I don't know if you're a baseball fan at all, but they have just been such a rousing success with the banning of the shift and the pitch clock. And for all of these reasons, baseball is so much fun again. And I think basketball is they're very cognizant of the fact that when these things happen in the NBA, the instinct from fans so often is just to complain and to say like, "Oh, I hate the fact that these games end in, foul fest. It's so boring. The style of play is worse with all the threes." You can't fix all of them. I don't think they'll really be able to do anything about the threes. I think they're going to address the free throws at the end of the game in some meaningful way. I personally would do the Elam ending. I don't think that's what they'll do. I could see them making intentional fouls, technical fouls. So one shot in the ball instead of just straight up two shots. I just think enough is enough. And this is going to be the year where it boils over and fans just say, "We are so sick of this. We have new broadcast partners. They're going to say, fans hate this. Let's make a change."
So I think this category might be more actually what is the thing that we individually are getting impatient about? Because I hear you on this. I kind of get the feeling we might not hear enough pushback from the fans, from the general audience on this thing enough to make some type of change, which ropes into my thing. I am hoping I've lost patience with this, but I'm hoping that this does become the year where the East and West conference disparity finally hits a boiling point. Last year really upset me. I did the math. The top 8, the playoff teams in the West had a net rating combined over, it was like 10.4 points higher than all the East playoff teams.
Can I help you with this? I want to add another point to this. They had the higher net rating, but they also had the harder schedules because they were playing West teams. So that even in itself doesn't do your point justice.
Well, the thing is, I'll talk about that in a second, because basically I'm calling for the abolishment of conferences. We had a 37 win team in the East make the playoffs because they got hot in the wild card. Like how is this good for the league? We could have so much better matchups in the playoffs if we just had a standard bracket. And I know that then there's less hope for some of these teams in the East from making a meaningful run. Right now, the system, I would argue that it's way more damaging for some of these lower end teams in the West. Some of these teams, they gotta automatically play the 1 seed, the 2 seed in the West. Like, they don't have a chance historically. Why not, instead of playing those teams in the first round, some of our Grizzlies / Pelicans / Mavericks, those tier of teams, maybe they get to play against like a 3 or 4 seed in the East in the first round if it was just exactly 1 through 16 best teams. So I think just as a consumer, we are being robbed of much better matchups. Like, I would argue that the average first round series in the West is just as meaningful, if not better outright, than the usual conference finals in the East. So
yeah, I think Warriors Rockets was a better series than Knicks Pacers.
Thank you. As to your point about the West teams playing each other more, which does contribute to how the records turn out. Still, these teams, these middle of the pack West teams, have better records than these 7-8 seed teams in the East. I think geography wise, if they ever abolish conferences, you're still going to have divisions, but the point of divisions isn't so you can win your division, just to reduce travel. If you're going to do realignment when expansion happens, it's just about like being efficient. Like, have your teams play the teams geographically closer to them a little more, which, when realignment happens, I think that's going to benefit the Wolves because they have to fly the most amount of miles just to play teams in their so-called division. But I think I'm hoping that this finally hits a boiling point, because this year could be historically, the disparity can be the worst it's ever been. And we're now in like 25 plus years of this where the West is just so much better than the East. And now we lost the two, the finals, one of the, two teams worthy of conference finals / making the finals in the East, suffered injuries. They're going to be out of it. Like to me, there's only two teams in the East that legitimately have a shot at the finals. And then, like I said, I only see like three other teams like in my mind securely making a top 6 seed. I think this needs to change. I think we're at a boiling point. This is too much. Yeah, that's my whole rant on conferences.
No, I'm totally with you. Do you know how differently I'd feel about the Mavericks if they were in the East? Because if you're like a play-in-ish team, well, first of all, you could win the same number of games in the East and be a 5 seed and get to avoid the Knicks and the Cavs in the first round and blah blah blah. Like the Mavericks plan, it wouldn't make sense in the East, but it would be a little bit more doable in the West. I just think it's not feasible. So
I mean,
I'm
it's
totally with
possible the
you.
Wolves would have already made the finals in one of these past 2 years if they were rightfully in the East.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty reasonable thing to say. I have no objections. I hope the league comes to this. I mean, this is one of those things too, where it's kind of on the broadcast partners for NBC and Amazon to be like, guys, we are getting inferior playoff games because you keep forcing us to put these 36, 37 win East teams on national TV that nobody wants to watch. I think I'm with you on this. Let's get rid of that.
All right. So, what do we got up next? We got a couple more. First, good contract over time. What is a contract that we could see aging better? I guess, and this doesn't necessarily need to be a recently signed contract. Could be something that happened maybe in a previous year and is starting to look a lot better now. Yeah, shout out to that Dyson Daniels contract that just happened. I think we could give that an honorable mention. 4 for 100, no option. I really like the Mikal Bridges contract. That might be pretty rich for a typically like on that team for a good fourth option. But I think that's going to be a tradable contract where the average good team that would trade for Mikal Bridges would probably have him be their third best player on the offensive hierarchy. And I think that's really good really good third player money. And I feel like this is kind of like, I think he could have gotten more if he hit free agency. Players like him are very hard to get. So I like that one. My number one, though, is Chet Holmgren, his contract. I already discussed Chet Holmgren earlier, but he got a max contract and not a very big body of work. He's basically only played like one whole season and then missed the first one, barely played last year. But had he played enough games, so, Victor Wembanyama, had he played enough games, he would have won Defensive Player of the Year. I think if Chet then played enough games with Wemby hurt, I think he could have won Defensive Player of the Year. This is all to say that the Thunder did a really good negotiation, in my opinion, where they just got him on a straight max for the 25%. They didn't put any escalators for it to hit 30% because I think he has a very strong opportunity to win Defensive Player of the Year or even just get an all-NBA team that could help escalate that contract even higher. To get that on a straight max, the straight 25% max, I think that's going to be a very, very positive value contract for the Thunder. One of the best max contracts out there, in my opinion.
Yeah, I have no objection. I think getting him at anything less than full max with the escalators is a total steal. I have no objections. My pick is a contract that for whatever reason, this doesn't come up. It's not like crazy value because it's a lot of money. I don't think we talk enough about the contract that Alperen Şengün signed last offseason, which started at less than the max, includes less than max raises. It's like 5% a year, not 8% a year. And then the player option on the end of it is flat. It doesn't increase at all. I think Alperen Şengün is going to be like a second team All NBA guy this year. I think he is going to be the best player on the Rockets, and I think the Rockets are going to be very good. The contract this kind of reminds me of Do you remember Giannis's first extension with the Bucks that was less than the max and not for the full 5 years? That's the contract this reminds me of, where at the end we're going to be saying like, wow, they've had this guy at less than the max for all of these years. That's how I think we're going to go with Şengün. Considering how tight things are going to get in Houston with all of the other guys they have to pay, I'm just kind of amazed that they get him at less than the max.
Yeah, they got that. They got him at a lot less than I thought they could get him when they signed that extension. So no, I could see it, especially if he can get a couple All NBA teams here and there. I'm sure even without that, that's still a very positive value contract for the Rockets. We'll see if they agree to something with Tyrese. And that front office, they just like to lock down everybody. If they have some sort of belief in them, worst case, they figure it out later, like they did with Jalen Green. They extended him. They found a good trade for him later. Let's look at the other side of this, a bad contract over time. I went first on the last one, so you can start with this one.
What were the Raptors thinking with the Jakob Poeltl deal? That extension doesn't kick in for 2 more years. He's gonna make 29 million in his age 33 season and 27 million in his age 34 season. In 2030, Jakob Poeltl has not been the guy that the Raptors traded for in like 5 years. Remember, Jakob Poeltl was at one point like one of the sneaky best rim protectors in the NBA. Hasn't been that guy in a long time. I know he took a step forward offensively, but it was more of a like, okay, this is nice. This doesn't change the way that we play offensively. This is not Brook Lopez learning how to shoot, above average 3-point percentage on high volume. It's more just like, oh, he's like a more active scorer and he's a decent passer and screener. Like, I don't see it. I don't know what the Raptors are thinking. You brought up the Raptors earlier. We talked a little bit about them as far as like a surprise top 6 team. The Raptors are paying the luxury tax right now. It makes no sense to me. I don't understand basically anything they've done contractually. I thought the Ingram deal was an overpay as well. I guess that was something they negotiated upon the trade, but like the Pirtle deal is the one I just look at and I'm like, why did you have to do this 2 years out? What did you think was going to happen this year that made him worth more?
Yeah, I say that about just about any extension with multiple years out. Unless you're like an all NBA player, for a non All Star to get this like maximum level extension that he could get with this many years out, yeah, it just kind of feels unnecessary. As far as that might be, yeah, for like a non max player, that could be one of the worst ones over time. But sticking to players that got big extensions with multiple years out, my number one is Devin Booker. He's already on his supermax, making 35% of the max. He's only just finished year one of, or maybe it's year two of that contract. He's still like pretty early into this contract he signed 3 years ago. And to give him an additional 2 years at his max, so now he's still got 3 seasons to clear before these next two kick in. I just don't understand the rush. I don't think right now, I'm having a hard time even seeing him fully justify, play to the value of his current contract. Keep in mind, Damian Lillard, he did the same exact thing. He had 3 years left on his contract, but while signing this 2-year extension, he not even going to have played a game on that deal. It's just too early. You don't know what's going to happen to these players that you're just going to commit these max dollars. So I think that's, in my eyes, the worst contract in the league right now. Another one I just don't feel too great about, De'Aaron Fox. I don't think he was a no-brainer max guy. He's like a one-time All-NBA guy. I think he's only been an All-Star once. The history of players that who's only accomplished that much getting their third contract, a max contract, it's not great. I just want to throw that one in there.
Yeah, I'll defend the Fox contract. It's less that you're doing that for him. I kind of think you're doing it for Rich Paul, because Rich Paul stuck his neck out for you to get Fox to San Antonio, because very few guys have ever wanted to really go there. I think there's a chance that they trade Fox in a year. So I feel like this is kind of doing right by him and doing right by the agent, because if you're planning to be a contender for the next 10, 15 years, you're probably going to have to do a lot of business with Rich Paul. So I understand why they did that. I also think there's a chance they trade Fox in a year.
And that's the last point I just missed when we're talking about the Spurs and my trade prediction. They're going to do something. They could still trade Fox. I don't know if he's trade eligible this season now. I don't know if he signed that extension a little too late. No, actually, no. I think he can still technically be traded. But either way, even if they're not going to do like a Vassell plus Harper slash Castle type package with the picks, they can get a lot of money out with Fox. And I think now, long term, deep down, that's what the Spurs probably hope. If you can get Fox to, if Fox can maybe make a couple All-Star teams, keep his trade value as high as when they brought him in, that could go a long way towards trading for your next star, assuming Dylan Harper does become one of them. So, but I'm a little, I don't know. I'm afraid that now they didn't, thankfully they didn't give up that much to get him, but now I'm a little queasy. I'm a little afraid maybe they would get just as much in a trade if they were to eventually move him. All right, Sam, last one, and we are done for the day. Wild card prediction. This is just anything you have a prediction on. I'm going to go first because you really hyped yours up. Sounds like mine's not going to keep up with yours. I think the Bucks will do something. That's the broad part. I don't. Will it be something like performing really bad and then they fire Doc and things don't get better and Giannis asks for a trade midseason? Could be something like that. I don't expect that. Like I said, I'm not going to bet for that to happen midseason. I'm going to go the other way around. I alluded to this earlier. I think the Bucks are going to do something that appeases Giannis. Maybe doesn't get him to sign an extension long term, but gets him to fully buy in for the next year and a half at least. They have one first round pick, I believe they can trade this year. That might be enough to bring in somebody during the offseason. They will be able to trade a couple more, but they also, unlike the previous few seasons, they've got some flexibility. I'll just pull up their cap sheet where they have about $14 million in tax space. They've been above the aprons all throughout the past year. So they've got some flexibility where, let's say they want to do like a Kyle Kuzma trade, they could potentially bring back a $30 million guy. And if we get close to the trade deadline, once Portis and Porter, all these guys become trade eligible, you could start to aggregate them. They could bring somebody potentially making a max contract. Now, I'm not saying it's going to be necessarily somebody like really good, but I think they could I think they'll get something done just enough where Giannis is going to end up wanting to stay around for at least through 2027. I don't know how bold that is, but how wild that is, but that's my prediction.
I mean, I think it says a lot about the state of NBA coverage that predicting that a star will stay on this team is now considered a bold prediction, but I'm not bashing it. You know how we frequently talk about how small guards on max contracts are worth way less in trades than you might think based on their talent just because there's a surplus of those guys. I could totally see them trading for one of those kinds of guys where it's like, oh, they traded for Ja Morant because nobody else wanted to trade for Ja Morant. And well, they could. They had the assets to give a decent package, and there wasn't much competition. So, like, yeah, I could see them doing that. Or LaMelo Ball, somebody like that. I don't know who it's going to be. I think LaMelo's too young, actually. Trey Young, I don't know. Somebody in that vein.
Yeah.
I could see that, certainly. Yeah, I think that's a reasonable prediction. Here's mine. I have been joking to myself for a lot of this offseason that the New Orleans Pelicans are pulling a major league right now. And for those who did not have not seen the movie Major League, the premise basically is that the owner is making the team as bad as possible so that she can then move it to Miami and then make it good. I sort of look at the Pelicans and I jokingly believe that what's happening right now is intentionally poisoning the well so that the team can move. So here's my joking, but like 5% of me believes this prediction. And I'm not saying I absolutely believe this is going to happen. We're going bold predictions, and I'm going bold. LeBron James will retire at the end of the 2025-26 season and simultaneously announce that he has purchased the New Orleans Pelicans. And there won't be an announcement at this time, but the end game will be moving them to Las Vegas. Do I actually believe? Am I willing to put my name on like I predict that, I believe it's going to happen? No, of course I don't. That's kind of a crazy thing. Is there 5 to 10% of me that thinks that's kind of what's going to happen? Yeah, I sort of do. I look at this weird league that was going to happen abroad that Maverick Carter was involved in, and now he's not. That LeBron had the meeting with Jokic's guy over. And I sort of think, I wonder if there was a situation where LeBron tried to put a little bit of pressure on the NBA about their European expansion plans and kind of said, hey, if you guys don't help me out with getting a team, I might go up, give you some competition abroad. And now that suddenly disappeared. I wonder why. It's just like a 5 to 10% of me thinks that something like this could happen, but it's just my fun, actual bold prediction that I wanted to put out. Where am I on the craziness scale right now?
So I actually had a similar thought, but around Steph Curry, but instead of retiring, what if maybe when his contract ends, whenever that is, like 2, 3 years, he decides to play, finish out his career with the Hornets, because that's his hometown team, with like some kind of wink wink deal that he would eventually have an option to be a minority or owner and then like over time buy the team. So he plays for them now, pulls a Michael Jordan to help raise their value. And then he's in the ground floor for potential ownership because he's made enough money where he like ownership is also a realistic possibility for him. So I could see LeBron doing something like that. I don't know if he'd be. I doubt he'll be here playing long enough where he could do that for the expansion Vegas team. But maybe it's just another. Maybe he would be interested in like whether it's the Pelicans or one other team that could be for sale eventually. Maybe he wants to play for them just to help raise their value before he eventually gets involved in ownership.
So the reason I don't think that'll happen for Steph is that that team just sold. If Michael Jordan was still the owner, that would make a lot of sense, especially because I think the NBA would love the idea of having a player owner, not like literal player owner, like playing for the team and owning it at the same time, but a player becoming an owner. I think it's good for the sport when the ownership body includes at least one player. I do think there will be some appetite among the owners to get LeBron into the circle. I don't think he will play for that team, but you bring up the Vegas expansion as if it's like a foregone conclusion, and now I don't think it is. Frankly, I think a lot of owners look at this giant media rights deal and say we don't need the cash, which is why I think this makes more sense. Where you could still have LeBron, you could still have the Vegas team, but it wouldn't be expansion. You would just frankly be moving a team out of a market that has failed. We can say that. I'm sorry, Pelicans fans, there's been an NBA team in New Orleans for 20 years. It's never really gained significant traction. They've driven out 2 stars in Chris Paul and Anthony Davis, and it's not looking great with Zion either. I just kind of look at New Orleans as a market that hasn't worked. The Jazz were there as well, and then they left. I kind of think it makes sense if the league doesn't want to expand it, the owners don't want to slice up the pie into smaller slices, for them to just say New Orleans isn't working. We want a team in Las Vegas. That's kind of our West Coast base anyway. LeBron wants that team. We want LeBron in the circle. Let's give LeBron that team and let him move them to Vegas. Like that is like it's conspiratorial to an extent, but the dots are not difficult to connect.
I think a year ago that would have been a bold prediction that expansion's gonna not come as soon as we think. Seems like that is where it's trending, where that's gonna get pushed out a little longer, maybe through the end of this decade. So that would have been a good one last year. But yeah, I think we're all done, Sam. That was a good, fun way to start the season. Anything coming up we should be on the lookout for?
Season starts tomorrow. I don't want to like hype up anything that I might write because who knows? We'll see what opening night gives us. But I will be writing about everything that happens. We'll kind of go from there. But I'm excited. It's been a fun off season. I'm looking forward to a really exciting season. Yeah, I'm excited to talk about stuff with you as it happens now.
I'm super excited for this season. It's been a while since I've never gotten to consistently put out podcasts. I mean, I've only started this podcast last year, so I'm excited to really start it in the year and hopefully get something out regularly. So everyone be on the lookout for that. Me and Sam are going to put out really great work throughout the season. Make sure you are following us on Twitter, him at Sam Quinn CBS. We have the handles there. You can follow me on Blue Sky and Twitter for all sorts of instant salary cap transaction reactions. Make sure you subscribe to Third Apron, both wherever you get your podcasts and the newsletter on Substack. As I touched on earlier, I wrote something about the Kings yesterday about how I could see their trade deadline going. And also I defended the Keegan Murray deal. I think that's arguably the most sensible contract on the context of the roster. So check that out. Probably going to do a flash sale this week. So be on the lookout for that. And we'll see you guys sometime soon. Enjoy.